Many Americans are unaware that behind the scenes, the technical backbone of the financial system is decades out of date.
Everyone in crypto believes the same thing. Crypto is anti-government, is anti-banks, but what if I told you it's the exact opposite? What if the US governments need crypto to survive more than you need crypto to make money? And once I followed the money, everything started connecting. Why they legalized crypto so fast, why they put pro-crypto people in every position of power, why they banned CBDCs but push stablecoins. None of this is random. All of this points to one big thing. In this video, I'm going to break down how crypto is about to replace the current financial system and how you can position yourself for actually what's coming next. Before I get started, for everyone new, I'm CryptoGit, been over 9 years in the space, did over 5,000 X in total. Last time I told everyone to buy the most fearful environment ever when we had the lockdowns. I told everyone to buy Bitcoin, ETH, NEO. Check the date, all those coins did like crazy. And I told everyone to sell at the peak too, which is live on my YouTube channel. So let's get started. First of all, this is going to be a very important presentation because I've been working for so long to actually do the proper research for this thing. But before I start, I want to make something clear. This is not financial, legal, or tax advice. Be really careful. This is just my theories, my opinion, and my speculation. I don't want anyone to take this for granted. So let's get it started. To make this simple, first of all, I'm going to go and cover a bit the depth and what's going on with US so you can create a better idea. So this is the depth numbers basically from April 2026. Currently, the US national basically debt is 39 trillion. It means that the current actually interest is 1.17 trillion, debt per citizen is like 100k, and debt to GDP is 100% plus, meaning that the majority of it goes to basically paying the debt, and it's growing like 7 billion a day, and it can probably just go quicker than that. So the issue here is that the yearly deficit, basically how much actually America needs, is 1.8 trillion. So interest payments on the current debt for US now consume 1/3 of the entire federal budget, and it's growing for every single year. This is a big issue because these numbers are constantly growing and there's not a solution to this thing. When Elon Musk came, they said Doge is gonna help this thing because they're gonna tax, they're gonna basically cut the fraud and all these ideas, and honestly nothing happened, and today this is just growing every single day. So to get you a better perspective how US debt works, it's a cycle that never ends. Now these are the numbers. Governments in a year approximately earns, let's say, 4.9 trillion in taxes. They spend 6.7 trillion per year, so means that they have a deficit of 1.8 trillion per year. So how are they going to find this money? They issue bonds or treasuries to cover the gap. They basically take more money so they can fund this deficit because they needed to spend it. So they issue bonds to cover this gap. Investors, institutional money, banks buy those bonds, countries with real money. Governments basically takes that money that they actually raise and spends it to the economy and repeats forever, and that's how kind of the 39 trillion actually keeps growing. So who used to buy the US debt? Because for decades the countries were the biggest buyer of the US treasuries. China was one of the biggest one, Japan too, England is too, because I forgot to add Saudi Arabia, European central banks too. They buy basically the dollar because they believe that the dollar is a world reserve currency. It's the petrodollar, which all oil is priced in there, so they buy safety. They get a percentage yield for actually providing the money to the government, and that's a net positive thing for both countries. US gets what they want, they get actually a percentage of their money back, and they got the backing by the petrodollar because US dollar is a reserve currency. Until in those latest years, something is starting to break. So what is this thing? If you check this chart here, for the first time ever, which never happened before, the central banks are holding more gold than treasuries, meaning that they don't want any more the debt of US. China, for example, have been dumping US treasuries a lot, and they have been accumulating gold a lot. Japan is kind of reducing a bit. Central banks worldwide, as I said, are just jumping on the debt of the gold and not the debt of US. So you might ask, what changed? What's the shift? Other countries are actually not dumb. let me go back to this, other countries are not dumb. They see that they have 39 in debts and they make them nervous because this scheme continues to go. They raise money, they devalue the currency, and that's how they're destroying the US dollar power. Something that those countries also feared is what happened with Russia, because Russia weaponized the dollar. They use it against, for example, Russia. They froze, I think, $300 billion in assets. So imagine a country, let's say like China, trying to buy treasuries and trying to support the government, and there's a fight between those together, and US actually froze those assets. That's the last thing that they want, because they're supporting the government, right? And another thing is that the countries see that interest payments for the US are consuming 1/3 of the US budget, meaning that it's becoming to an end. It's coming to a point that it's going to be unsustainable, and only US will only work to basically have no money and just going to go all to the interest of the debt. So those countries are not dumb. Also, another thing is the BRICS nation are kind of building an alternative dollar, which all those countries are trying to build a gold-backed system, and there's a lot of kind of shift occurring in this stage too. And as I said, trust in US ability is to replace starting declining, because they know they can't actually pay it. They know the US will continue to actually do this scheme for longer and longer and longer. So what is the basically one of the threats too that I told you is the BRICS. Like BRICS is the connection of countries, like it's like 30 countries around in total, is Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. So US dollar is backed by 39 trillion in debt. So trust is declining globally. Why? Because this is backed kind of on just paper money, right? While what BRICS is trying to do is they're trying to build a system that is backed by physical gold. And if BRICS succeeds, of course, right now it's in the early stages, dollar loses the reserve currency status. So this is something huge, because BRICS system, as I said, is based on something tangible and is based on gold. This is based on just the trust of the US governments. And US is not dumb. They need a strategy to keep the dollar alive. And Trump administration has kind of noticed this thing since the beginning. So what they did, they entered the stable coins. You remember how Trump was so quick when he joined the administration to actually be like, yeah, we're going to be the first country of the crypto, we're going to be the center of the capital. You think that's not done on purpose? You think they do this because they just care about crypto and you to make money? No, there's a bigger purpose on it. And once Trump came, he said we're going to launch the strategic reserve. Then what happened next was something so quick and a lot of people didn't pay much attention. It's stable coins. So they put the law that it was called Genius Act, and it means that every $1 of stablecoin must be backed $1 by treasury. So meaning that if you have one USDT, you need USDT basically needs to buy $1 worth of treasury. So they're backed by something. Stablecoin market cap is currently 316 billion. And Tether so far, because they shared I think yesterday the data, for the past 2 years is the 7th biggest largest buyer of the US government debt globally for the past 2 years. It's surpassing most of the countries, the 7th largest. So the genius move behind, because it's also called Genius Act, the genius move behind Trump administration is this thing. They're forcing the people, this is something that many people don't get, they're gonna force in the future the people from other countries to technically help to pay the US debt. Because here's something, first of all, by doing this with stable coins, they fix the issue, of course, in short term about who is the buyer, because all countries are dumping, right? So if you shift the buyers to an entity you control, like stable coins, you're basically not caring much about other countries. Of course, you don't want all those to dump because it's a big money, but at least you have a temporarily buyer, which are stable coins. And this is so huge, because something that you need to realize too, which a lot of people don't get, is that before, basically the debt was held by countries, by institutions, pension funds, while with stable coins, they're going to be still institutions and all these pensions funds, etc. But what people don't get is that, for example, if you're a Russian citizen, if you want to move money, it's so hard, there are banks and you want to move it to China. In China there's a ton of regulation, you can't move money outside. So what you're going to use? You're going to use USDT, you're going to use stable coins. In Argentina, same. In Venezuela, same. The usability of stable coins on those countries is through the roof. So what Trump is doing with that thing is that he's technically forcing indirectly people of other countries that don't want the debt of US to back the debt of US. You see how genius this move is, because they might be, let's say, Russia might hate the treasury, they don't want to buy, but people in Russia, they still going to use USDT and they still use it today. You might be like, yeah, but they can sanction those people. Let's say Russia puts a rule that, yeah, someone that uses USDT, we're gonna put it in jail. That can happen, but you know what Trump can weaponize? He can weaponize again their assets. He can say, look, I'm gonna put more sanctions on you. So that's the power and the leverage that he does with tariffs too. So you see how genius the move with stablecoins is. They have a temporarily buyer of their debt. I say temporarily because this scheme will someday end, right? Because they can't keep running this forever. So they have a temporarily buyer of their debt for long term, which is amazing. And they shifted the buyer of the debt from institutions only to also people indirectly, right? Because if I use, for example, if I'm in China today and I want to have, let's say, $100 million in USDT, technically I'm backing $100 million worth of treasuries, because that's what USDT does with its money. You see how genius that move is. And they're saying that they expect stablecoins to reach like $2 trillion by 2028. So here's what happened once Trump came in, because a lot of people maybe haven't paid attention, is the regulatory takeover. Every key position is filled with pro-crypto leaders. White House, basically they put David Sachs, crypto and AI Caesar. I think he left, but they're going to put another guy. SEC, they completely destroyed the previous SEC guy, which was the Gary Gensler, and they put the pro-crypto chairman, Paul Atkins. He launched Project Crypto. What he did, he basically removed the previous cases from crypto, where the big attack came to crypto exchanges, people, and he removed and dropped all the cases. Then, what he has, CFTC, the chairman is Mike Selig, which was Atkins' deputy. You see, is the same kind of people the Trump administration has in control. Treasury is Scott Bessent, which we know is pro-Trump. So he controls right now White House, which is his, but he controls SEC, CFTC, and Treasury. The next thing which he's fighting right now is Federal Reserve. And if he controls, and he will control all these things, he can rewrite the rules of everything that occurs with the financial structure. So the Federal Reserve, the Kevin Warsh, is a pro-crypto person. He holds, I think, over 30 crypto projects. So when he's going to come, because he's likely going to come and Senate approved him, right now they have to vote him, we're going to have for the first time in history SEC, CFTC, Federal Reserve, Treasury all aligned. It's one unified crypto framework. And this is what most people don't get. This is them controlling what they want in terms of the blockchain, in terms of the financial structure. So what they've done so far, they've done more progress than everything that happened in crypto. So they did the Genius Act. They did the CBDC's ban via executive order. They have this strategic Bitcoin reserve that they're not going to sell any of this money. They classified the majority of cryptos as commodities. SEC dropped all the enforcement casings. Banks allowed to hold crypto, like Fed actually said that we're going to allow holding crypto, we're going to remove the limits. They put in the staking ETFs, BlackRock, all those guards, Vanguards. They did the SEC, CFTC joint digital asset taxonomy, so they put everything on system. They have the rare crypto, which is coming very soon, which basically no one can launch any more scams. No one can rug any more people. It takes, I think, $2 million to launch a coin because they need to have lawyers, regulatory clarity, people inside. It's becoming something real. So what's next? Next is Clarity Acts, which is basically all the tokenization framework, meaning that what this coin will be called. Is it a commodity? Is it a security? How they're going to put it on blockchain? Market structure bill is next, which they are building the infrastructure for putting all those assets on blockchain. They're going to build the infrastructure for institutions to jump and tokenize everything. They're going to build the infrastructure so banks can directly join on tokenized assets. They're building the infrastructure so pension funds can easily integrate the tokenized securities, real estate, everything on blockchain. The next thing is probably Senator Loomis Act, which they say that we need to buy 1 million Bitcoin, and that's what they have kind of done so far. Before we continue, I want to quickly mention something valuable. I run a free Telegram channel where I post daily insights, in-depth market breakdowns, and things that I can cover freely on Instagram and my YouTube. It's 100% free, no hidden stuff, just pure knowledge and updates to keep you ahead of the curve. You can find the link below or pinned comment if you'd like to join. It's all free, and let's get back to the video. So most of the rules that they have to actually rewrite and to change completely the financial structure is already here. They just need the Clarity Act, your structure bill, and those stuff. Maybe Bitcoin Act is not a big deal, but we're gonna see. So why this all connects? Because each law is a building block for the next one. Most people see as random crypto moves. They be like, yeah, once this come, we're gonna go to the moon. Moon is not a problem. This is something that is bigger than just coins pumping. So this is a scheme. I know most will not get it, but I'll explain later too. So Genius Act, stablecoin must hold liquid assets, basically be backed by treasuries and all these things. Clarity Acts, tokenized assets become liquid. So all those liquid assets that they put it here, they can actually via Clarity Act allow very likely to be added on stablecoins. So tokenized assets qualify as stablecoin backing. Issuers can legally swap treasuries for asset, and monetary system shifts from debt to assets. I know it's complicated, but you're gonna get it later, no worries. So let's explain right now the inflationary flow, like how your $1 ends up causing inflation right now, basically for the government. So you buy one USDT with $1. Tether buys one treasury from the government, right? So they buy treasury bills. Governments gets you $1 in real cash and they spend it. New money enters in the economy, then inflation comes. So you, Tether, government, economy, governments get your money, and that's how the inflation kind of gets started. Now, my personal perspective and belief and opinion that I have in the future, what is coming next, is Bitcoin backed bonds. And hear me out, because this is such an important topic. I do believe that in the future, I don't know the timeline, might be 1 year, 2 years or longer or even less, I believe that the US government will launch Bitcoin backed bonds. And El Salvador did this, by the way. So you might ask why they need this. They need this because currently stable coins actually are the buyer of the US debt. But still there's a lot of power from other institutions, there's a lot of power from other countries, right? So how you can actually turn back the trust from other countries, right? Because they're not gonna buy you being backed by just trust. They're not gonna back you being backed by just the petrodollar system when they can have BRICS by physical gold. But if US government introduces Bitcoin backed bonds, which are basically something really essential for their government, you can bring back the attraction of other people wanting again your debt. So you increase the demand of your debt, and it increases the demand for you to basically take more money. So you grow the debt and you spend it more to pump all the risk assets and make all your stock market guys and all your BlackRock, Vanguard happy. So here's the thing. Regular bond, let's say, has 4.5% interest. They have no upside, no inflation protection, right? But if you have a Bitcoin backed bond and you put a lower interest rates and you give Bitcoin appreciation, inflation hedges built in, that's a no-brainer deal. And something that many people don't get is that if they offer Bitcoin backed bonds, the interest is going to be lower, meaning that the interest here will actually help and allow the US to actually pay less. So today they spend 1/3. By implementing Bitcoin backed bonds, not that they attract new countries, new money to enter the debt of US, but they also lower the yearly interest, because if they offer Bitcoin, they don't need to offer again they don't need to offer here again the 4.5 interest. What, for example, What, for example, El Salvador did, and I'm going to touch it later, is this thing. So where does the government get Bitcoin? Because, for example, you might ask, like, they need Bitcoin. So there are multiple things. So they can use first the sized Bitcoin, meaning that they currently hold like 200k Bitcoin. They have like, in total, they have like $90 billion, meaning that they can use those $19 billion to actually back a bond. This is one thing. One thing that actually Senator Loomis, I think, has said multiple times is to revalue their gold. I don't know if that's going to be real, but I wouldn't be surprised if they do it in the future. So currently the issue is that they have the gold valued since the system at 1973, meaning that the book value is 42. Today is like 2,300 or more. So they can basically just revalue the gold and get like $600 billion. And the Senator Loomis has proposed this plan to buy, let's say, 1 million Bitcoin over 5 years. Maybe they don't use their money, maybe they use this. So they use 600 million. So that's how they buy Bitcoin, and that's how Bitcoin skyrockets. One, which is the most realistic, in my own opinion, model 2, can also be this thing, what El Salvador did. El Salvador did it last year in, I think, October 2025. So let's say the government wants to issue $1 billion, right? Half of that they buy Bitcoin, half of that they keep it for their needs. Investors get 6.5% APY plus Bitcoin gains. So El Salvador is giving a big percentage because it's the first country doing that. But the US doesn't need to give this much, right? The US needs to give less than the current bonds offer. So they're called Volgana bonds, and US could copy this and they can do quite well. I don't think they need this APY. I think they need something small. You see how genius it is? Because think about it. If you're a country today and you want to buy the bond and you want to give, let's say, $1 billion to the US government, you get the APY, which would be probably less than the regular bond, but you get the upside. You get, for example, 50% of profits from Bitcoin gains. If Bitcoin today goes 10x and you have, let's say, $500 million, you have, let's say here, a ton of money that you can actually have it 50-50 with the government. It's a win-win. Another thing it might be partial backing, so they don't need 100% Bitcoin backing. Let's say they want to issue 1 trillion in bond, they only buy 10% of it, so only 100 billion. And the investors accept the low yield because Bitcoin upside makes up for the low rate. So it depends. Maybe they do the El Salvador model that they place 50% of that, or maybe they do something small, 10 to 20. That would still be amazing because, as I said, today people are buying the trust of the US dollar. Imagine if it's backed by Bitcoin. And government is going to save a lot of money. This is just an estimate, but numbers can change on how much they can save from the lower interest payments. So as I said, stablecoin are the buyer of the debt, but Bitcoin-backed bonds are going to lower the interest payments and are going to force more countries to actually get attracted to buy back the debt. This is something really genius. So you might ask right now, this is really good, but why Bitcoin bonds don't fix it? Because the government still creates debt from nothing. Of course, it's going to be backed by Bitcoin, but they don't stop inflation too, because governments get money, they print it, they use it into the economy, and it causes inflation. So they still issue bonds, create debt from nothing, of course, with some backing. They still get real cash, they still spend the cash, and new money enters the economy. Only thing that changed, they pay, as I said, less interest on the same debt, and they can continue for many years to keep this running. Probably they have, 5 more years, so I'm not sure about the time frame. So now, what is stepping the stage right now? What is they're doing before the swap, and why you need to understand what comes next, with my opinion, because most people don't get this. So far we've covered. We have US debt 39 trillion, unsustainable. Countries are dumping treasuries, stablecoins replace as the new buyer. Trump built the entire regulatory framework. You see why he wants to control. Trump wants to control right now Fed, because he wants to control all the regulatory framework. And Bitcoin bonds will help, will keep the engine running for a few more years. They're gonna pump the crypto like crazy, but it doesn't stop the inflation. So the question is, what actually fixes the debts and kind of stops the inflation? The answer isn't the law, because that's what people think, like they're gonna make a law or something like that. It's a market event that forces the system to change. So two different engines, what's happening right now and what's coming. Engine one is Bitcoin backed bonds with stable coins. It's government tool, they control it, makes debt cheaper, but inflation continues. So engine one is what the government wants to do. Engine two is a stable coin asset swap. Market forces happens to government, debt actually shrinks and inflation stops. Engine two is what happens when the engine one fails. And one comes first because this is easy, the other comes because it's necessary. So here's what you need to understand. Stablecoins buy treasury. The system works for now. They basically are the buyer of the treasuries. Everything is fine. They have like stablecoin market up 316 billion, Tether 135, the 7th largest debt buyer for the past 2 years. So China leaving, they replace them, but they can actually get a bit of them with Bitcoin backed bonds. Japan reducing in the future, stablecoin kind of, as I said, replace them, but they can buy the bit because they have Bitcoin. So Tether is crazy because they made $10 billion in 9 months just from treasury interest. So everything right now looks fine on the surface, but the setup that makes the swap legally possible. This is what most people don't get on what I say, the setup and what I believe would happen. So listen me carefully. Genius Act is passed, meaning that stable coins are backed by high liquid assets, now treasuries. Now notice the term here. If you check the term of the Genius Act, they don't say treasury, they say highly liquid assets. And this is a part that I think it got everyone unprepared for what's coming next, because they see highly liquid asset, they think it's only treasuries. I don't think so. I think exactly on this rule is the genius move that would happen into the future, and is the secret that most people haven't paid attention. So with Clarity Act coming, they're gonna tokenize everything, real estate, gold, commodities, they're gonna put everything on blockchain. DTCC, I think is the name, is the company that controls $7 trillion. They're all going on tokenization, that they're going to put everything in blockchain. So the key detail, as I said, that most people miss is the highly liquid is a broad language. Right now they say treasuries, but once Clarity Act comes, they can possibly have the ability to use that highly liquid for using tokenized stocks, real estate, gold, commodities. So once tokenized assets trade 27 on blockchain, they're liquid by definition, right? Highly liquid assets. So tokenized assets now also qualify as stablecoin backing. And this is the part that many people don't get. This is the part that I believe the future will have coming for the US government. So issuers have a legal alternative to treasuries, but they wait for the trigger, because you might be like, why they don't do it right now? They have to wait for the trigger. So what is the trigger? Might be the question. So in order for the swap to occur, they need a reason. Same as they need to print money. You will see how the government operates. They always need a reason to justify the money printer. Last time in 2020, what we had the virus. They printed money. Today, what we have the energy crisis with Iran war. So don't be surprised if the Fed comes in place, they lower the rates and they start printing again. So they need the trigger. So this is the event that forces the swap to happen. You might ask why, and you don't get it, but you'll understand it quite good later. So one of these things, in my own opinion, breaks the system, meaning that maybe debt interest consume 50% plus of federal budget and it becomes unsustainable. Maybe there's an issue with Bitcoin bonds and they don't work in the future. Maybe the interest falls for other countries because they realize this scheme is just a way for US to keep running for a few more years. Maybe BRICS gold-backed system launch successful. That's going to be a really big thing. Recession hits probably and treasury markets become unstoppable, or all of those at once. Like there needs to be something into the future that would break the treasuries. So now, if you're a USDT founder or USDC founder, the issuer, you start to worry, right? Because you hold all the treasuries. Basically, countries are moving away. As you saw here, the photo, the countries are moving away in this thing here, right? So the ones affected if there's a big crisis in the US, as I told you, at this thing here, recession or BRICS gold-backed system launches, stablecoin ask themselves, like, why I need to actually hold this debt when I can do something else, right? Because Genius Act gave the permission, right? They gave the permission to hold, as I said, the term here, highly liquid asset. While Clarity Act, it gave them the alternative what they can do, and now they have a reason. So how treasuries works for people that want to create a bad idea and to understand the rolling over. The treasury has an expiration date. Government must pay back the holder. So usually for stable coins, it's T-bills, which is a short-term maturity in terms of time frame. So treasury matures, expires, government pays Tether, let's say $50 billion. Tether buys another 50 billion back to treasuries, and debt's never shrinking. Same money is lent forever. It's like a credit card, right? So this is what happens. Now, what happens differently and how debt actually shrinks for the first time after the trigger event. So treasury matures, right? Government pays back the Tether 50 billion because those are short term. And Tether is not taking like a big treasury for 3 years. They only take short term because they actually control so interest rates in that way. So Tether said no more treasuries, right? Because they see this thing that's happening, the event, the big thing. So what they do is that money that they took, they buy 50 billion tokenized assets instead. So 50 billion in debt is kind of gone. Nobody lent it back. It just defaults. So it's not going to disappear, but no one wants it anymore. So the domino effect is like this. Every month the debts get smaller. This repeats every month. So 50 billion gone this month, 50 billion gone this month. Debt shrinks naturally without anyone printing, without new law, without any government decision. So this is not a disappearing of the debt. This is a change of the system. Because think about it, when nobody is left to buy, the governments runs out of the people that want to buy. So governments try to issue new treasuries, but who's buying? China is gone, Japan is gone, Saudi is gone. Stablecoin issuers that they're where their last hope is gone. So who's going to buy it? It's only the Federal Reserve, right? So Fed buying its own debt, it's literally printing money. But if they have all this big issue, they're going to allow the Fed to buy the debt, but they're going to devalue more the currency. So the dollar is going to collapse in the future. But they have CBDCs already banned, right? So the current dollar loses power. So in the future, the only functioning dollar left, digital dollar, are stable coins. And they're backed by real assets now that government's debt and not the government debt in the past. You see the genius move, how I believe, of course, my theory, how I believe the system is completely going to change. And this is all done on purpose. You might ask, like, why they need to shift the power to stablecoins? Because who controls stablecoins, you think? Like, do your own research. Who controls stablecoins? Again, I don't want to talk too much, but do your own research. So why stablecoins survive? The banking changed, the function didn't. Before the swap, as we said, we had one USDT, one treasury. This government debts. If government defaults or there's a big issue, your USDT is worthless. But after the swap, and after the big event that the swap came, one USDT can be one tokenized asset. It might be a basket of stocks, real estate, Bitcoin, gold, commodities too. Government can default, but your USDT is going to be fine. So this is a genius move because they're going to basically move from the old analog digital paper world to the next stablecoin world, which is technically a digital money. They banned CBDCs, but honestly, what is USDT? What is USDC? Isn't that the same thing? So also the genius move is that kind of this stops inflation in short term, of course, because old system you buy USDT, Tether buy treasuries, government spends it, inflation. New system, you buy USDT, Tether buys tokenized stocks, seller gave up the equal value because they are buying from the seller, so technically there's no inflation. So the difference is who gets the money. Old way, government got it, spends it. New ways, private parties actually exchange it by themselves. So what could be the timeline for this? I've actually give you a full timeline, but again, don't take this date for granted. It's just my assumption and I'm not sure about this. So I believe soon we're gonna see in 2027 and 2028 maximum, in my own opinion, Bitcoin-backed bonds being introduced. Stable coins are just gonna buy more treasuries. US will gonna be like, we don't need any more, you guys, for other countries. Then what happens very soon, also during those years between 2026 to 2028, we have also Clarity Act, meaning that a lot of money will enter just the blockchain. Tokenization is being built, everything is going to go on blockchain, real estates, commodities, everything is going to be online. Then the phase 3 will come, which will be probably after 2028, which kind of debts become unsustainable and something like BRICS launches. Like that should happen, the trigger event, right? The something that it should break with the US, so the swapping and the big shift and the big change of the financial structure occurs. So the next thing after debt becoming unsustainable will be the great swap, which will be stable coins swapping their treasuries for the tokenized assets. So they invent a new system. It's not that, guys, you need to understand something, like it's not that the debt goes to zero, but the debt becomes something that no one cares because we move to a new system. You see, the new system is USDT. That's the new money. The new money is not the paper thing. So they shift all the people to the new system and we have no debt and we restart from zero. You see how genius the move it is, because it's not that they're going to pay off the debt. It's just they move the system from one part to another part that they control. Then I believe later is going to be the asset-backed swap. I don't know about the timelines. I've just put it something so you can create a better idea, but I'm telling you, so actually you have a clear overview, but I'm not sure about the time frame because no one knows 100%. Now, what this means, the bottom line, crypto is not a speculation anymore. First of all, the thing that you gotta realize that is the infrastructure for the next financial system. If you don't believe any of the stuff that I told you about the Bitcoin-backed bonds and all of this, just think about this part. Why they had to implement all those rules so quick? Ask those questions. Why they had to put all the crypto people in every piece of the most important of the government? Why they need to do this when they have no plans to actually do what I told you or something similar? Because don't get me wrong, there might be also similar moves and I might be wrong on what I say, but that's the trajectory where we are headed, right? That's what I believe. So crypto is actually the infrastructure for the next financial system. Stablecoins started crypto as a trading tool, but they become the government debt machine. They will end this basically monetary system, I believe, and they're going to be backed by tokenized assets and real world assets and Bitcoin too. So you see, Trump built every piece: SEC, CFTC, Fed, Treasury, Genius Act, Cleric Act. This is done on purpose. Like, why they need to put all the crypto people or crypto power in those sectors of the government? So this is pointing to one direction and to what I believe is coming into the future. And the ones who will lose is the ones that don't understand this financial shift. The ones that will be left behind are the ones that just hold the old system. They hold the dollar. The ones that would win the most are the ones that will control the assets and will hold the things that will appreciate the more, which I believe will be crypto. And I believe if they're going to launch soon the Bitcoin-backed bonds here, it's going to be a crazy thing because US governments will have to buy Bitcoin, or other countries will have to buy Bitcoin because they want to compete in this game of what US is doing. Because if you think about it, if Bitcoin-backed bonds become a big thing in US, I think there's going to be a fight with other countries too. I think Europe or other countries might see this as a solution. France, for example, currently is exploring the stablecoin, doing a similar thing with stablecoins like US is doing, because they know the power, they know where the world is headed, they know this kind of trajectory where things are headed with basically the setup. So the setup is something really important. I hope you enjoyed this thing. Don't forget to subscribe, and I hope you prepare yourself for what's coming next.